brought its interrogated weaponry to bear. In its distance, Bone Crusher had reached the Ark. Avoidingly an internal armament, he forced his way into the hangar. More than occupied, Optimus had no choice but to concentrate on the battle at hand. Those he had left behind would have to deal with Bone Crusher's assault. A barrage of plasma erupted towards him, concentrated enough to do plenty of damage. A series of blasts struck him twice. Optimus felt the temperature of his armor raise alarmingly. In places he had begun to buckle. Instead of turning away and trying to flee, he launched himself directly at Blackout, bringing his own weaponry online. Ironhide could have been pleased, expecting his prey to defy, not attack. Blackout retreated, trying to keep the consistent distance between them, while a complex invasive maneuver allowed him to avoid the incoming fire. It was also forced him within his target physical reach. Optimus slammed into Blackout's boot poised at his speed. At the same time, it grappled furiously. Optimus knew that Frenzy might well have recovered by now. If so, the other Decepticons would be expected to throw himself into a fight at any moment. Get off me! Blackout snorted, trying to find enough room to fire at Optimus. As you wish. Activating his drive, Optimus whirled and utilizing their calculated common center of gravity. Succeed in hurling. Blackout was directly into the path of hard driving Frenzy. The two Decepticons smashed into each other while satisfying force. Whizzing a quick glance away, Optimus' sensors had picked up the sight for that moment, at least in his fears. Emerging from the dark, gripping Mal that was the Ark's hangar, Bone Crusher came flying into space. Ironhide and Jazz were close behind and firing away with becoming enthusiasm. Optimus could almost sense the largest of the frustration as he compelled to focus his efforts evasion and defense instead of continuing his attack. Turning back to do damaged opponents, Optimus was preparing to engage arm afresh when a blanket transmission from Blackout brought to the end of the battle that was sudden as it was unexpected. Decepticons, fall back! Retreat! More than any tactic his advanced series had deployed in the course of the fight. Optimus bemused by the abrupt announcement. They still had him 1, 2, and on 1. And though Ironhide and Jazz were both seasoned warriors, he knew from experience that Bone Crusher rarely backed down from the battle. He was tempted to press apparent advantage and continue to fight, just as he decided to order pursuit. Ratchet reached him over to secure the battle frequency. Optimus, you should probably get back there. Why? I think we gained extracted advantage, he responded. Bowmate just reported in. Starscream was on the planet now, but in the light of what transpired, it is responsible to assume that he is now headed our way. Bowmate's barrel manages to survive his attack, and he is not in trouble quite yet. Let the others go. We need to regroup to reconsider. Starscream, Optimus thought. Disclosure that he was at hand was no surprise. But why he was down on the surface and uninhabited planet instead of in the middle of the fight? Certainly, his participation should have been a huge impact on the outcome. Understood, he inferred Ratchet. I'm on my way. It made no sense for Starscream to avoid for the clash for any reason. Optimus could have faced it. What could he and the Decepticons be up to? Something shrewd, no doubt. For all Megatron's momental molecules, he was very direct, rarely disadvantaged from his single-minded goal of the Autobot destruction. In contrast, Starscream was cunning and industrious. Optimus knew that he and his friends would have to prepare any number of possible surprises. He gave the thwarted Bone Crusher a wide berth, proposing the Ark at an angle that would allow him to keep censor of the retreating Decepticons as well. Your day will come, Optimus, Flacco transmitted openly. I will be there to celebrate your destruction. Across the space that separated them, the Autobot leader regarded his foe. You may be right, Blackout, he broadcast back, but it was in my power. I'll rip your spark from your chest before I switch off. He pointed at the nemesis drifting in the distance. Tell your master the Autobots are done running. The war was going to end here. He decided that there and then. Ironhide was right. They had enough fleeing and retreating, of always absorbing the first blow, so they would be sure of being able to escape and continue the search for the Allspark. This place, this time, this obscure corner of the cosmos were good as any of the final reckoning. One way or another, it is time to finish this. The Autobots are going to stand and fight. Ironhide and Jazz are waiting for him inside the hangar, having already repaired the damage Bone Crusher had done to the portal in the course of his intentional assault. That was an interesting ploy you ultralized out there. Ironhide observed with obvious satisfaction. Maybe it's not quite that I had in mind, but a variation deserving of admiration. Ironhide, my old friend, you were right when you said we needed to change tactics. I understand that it is difficult to be patient when you're losing. The line between breaching and our agent principles are acting no different than the Decepticons is a fine one. We must continue to find a new creative ways of dealing with them, and we will. Then we should go do it fast, Raj argued. Starscream isn't likely to wait around for us to come up with this carefully thought out response. You're right. Of course, Jazz, Optimus admitted. I have an idea or two. Before we respond directly or in kind, though, there is something that we need to do first. We must ensure that Bumblebee returns safely. Optimus turned and gazed into the poor empty world floating nearby. That accomplished, I promise both of you that before we leave this place, you each have all the opportunity for combat you can handle. Another geology tormented section of the barren plateau provided Bumblebee with a reasonable safe place to pause and take stock of the situation. Whipping around a particularly impressive pillar of twisted stone, he hastily transformed back to his normal bipedal mode. One familiar form that he had been fully reconstructed. He peered and run out scanned the direction for which he had come. There was no sign of Starscream, in fact, which for Bumblebee was properly grateful. In the course of the desperate fight for more robust Decepticon, he managed to send the brief report back to the yard, informing them of the powerful adversary presence. He knew he had been received. He was not surprised, and yet he had to be acted upon. At the moment, he was pretty sure that his friends were dealing with more imminent Decepticon's problems. As for the odd alien vessel, he had originally drawn him down to the surface of his impossible world, whatever its true significance and whatever it means to Decepticons. It was apparently enough to keep Starscream and pursuing him indefinitely. While not afraid to fight, Bumblebee was intelligent and experienced enough to know considered flight as a wire alternative on suicide, while he could do more hold on his own against an equality matched opponent. He knew that his design did not include the full developed fighting capabilities of someone like Optimus Prime or Ironhide, nor it was intended to do. He better serve the cause and scout, relying information as opposed to acting on to it. Going up against Starscream alone would not be helped in anything. Knowledge of one's imitation and the ability to operate effectively within them also straightened he reminded himself presumably. He found himself contemplating the nearby stone pillar. Directly beneath him stood a second stone tower. There was no notably stability at first. He has hollowed his perception to roam as he saw the three innumerable of such structures. Not only that they are remarkably similar in shape, but in closer inspection he realized that they formed an almost a perfect semicircle. The natural world, he mused, can play tricks with one sensory input. The baritone saw the important contradiction. He took a closer look. Natural or artificial? He found himself wondering. In Starscream's continued absence, he took a few moments to examine the pillars and to immediate surroundings. Winds and nothing else howled and eddied around him. Asymptomatic. What could have been around been a function of the pillars and reason for arranging them in such a fashion? Were there simply makers of some kind of left behind a long vanished race, or did they have some deeper purpose? Ironhide would have not cared. Jazz would have quickly grown bored by enigmatic's imminent spine. Only curiosity was another mark of his difference. Unlike his companions, preoccupied with uncovering the Allspark, he had always found their lesser species and their visual habits fascinating. It was one of the qualities that made a good scout. While he wanted to investigate further, he knew that he needed to go back to the Ark as soon as possible before Starscream thought to return to finish him off. Perhaps the Decepticon had to been dealt with and the mystery of the alien ship solved. He could have been allowed to explore this world in greater depths. Until then, such question would have given way to matters greater urgency in war and accumulation of knowledge. For its own sake, there must always be one of the first casualties. Taking a new or more direct line, he started back in the direction of his original landing site. As he did, so you respond digital communications. So you hope that they will still the Scourge channel. Jazz, Ratchet, are you? Without warning or procedure of any kind, the ground suddenly swirled and dropped away beneath his feet. He broke off the transformation as he realized that she was waist deep and thick, clenching grit and descending fast. It would have been an easier matter for him to break free of something as simple and straightforward as a pit full of quicksand. But this new geological phenomenon was significantly different from anything in his databanks to hold his attention. The sand and rock not only slid away sharply beneath him, but it was whirling like a cyclone. The speed at which they were swallowing him was breathtaking. They were up in his shoulders in seconds. As his head sank out of sight, he sent off the last transmission identifying his position. There could be time enough to go into details later, when he had gained a better understanding of the phenomenon, absent an emergency call for help from the Ark. He fully intended to follow experience through its conclusion. It might be the only piece of solid scientific information he had in time to take away from his Solgium to the unplanet planet. As the sands closed in over his head and darkness descended all around him, he switched flexibly to perceptive sonics in order to make sense of his surroundings. He could hear the hiss rattle of the grit against the abdomens. As he continued to sing, he could feel it circulating around him. More seconds passed before he felt his legs break free. The distance of the ground below would not allow enough time or need for him to engage propulsion. There was no one present to hear him slam feet first onto the stone floor. Straightening, he mulled over the multiple and prospective options. Before settling on the one he had offered the best vision in surrounding, that to human would not be consulted impenetrable darkness. He was standing in a natural cavern. Unusual split front decorated ceiling and floor, walls and channels. This place was dead now, devoid and of running water that had formed and decorated it. A number of tunnels led off to several directions. As far as providing easy route back to the surface, one was probably as good as another. He could check the airflow as